Live from the back of Ruth the Realtor's stretch down car, it's the Stacking Deed Show. Welcome back to a ride through the wonderful world of real estate investing. I'm Ruth the Realtor's part-time mechanic, neighbor Doug. And on today's show, how do you juggle your real estate investments and your full-time career? Our own full-time real estate juggler, Crystal, will talk to full-time veterinarian Mike Bugg about building his empire and about getting peed on. Oh, I am so down for this discussion. In our headlines, contractors are ghosting investors. How do you find a team to trust? We've got you covered. Plus, we'll listen to a TikTok about what one woman calls the most conservative way to invest in properties. And we'll dive into some data about the best cities for singles. Why should you care? We'll explain. And of course, I'll share some investing-related trivia. And now, three people who are all buckled in and ready to podcast: Crystal Hammond, Alan Corey, and Joe Saul-Sehy.
The seatbelt is tight, and we are ready to go. Hey there, Deeders. I am Joe Saul-Sehy, Average Joe Money on Twitter, and I'm here again in the back of Ruth's car. And luckily, it's not that bumpy today because we've got a bumpy ride for you audio-wise. I don't know if that even makes sense, but what does make sense is that on my right here is Mr. Alan Corey. How are you, man?
Doing great. Let's go look at some properties. This is what I'm up for every day.
Absolutely. And the good news is that on our left is the woman learning about property investing along with me. Crystal Hammond is here. How are you?
Hello, Joe. Good to be in the grace of all this good presence today. I'm talking about Ruth, by the way.
Yeah, I knew it definitely wasn't us. We got a great show, Crystal. We've got Mike Bugg you're going to interview, and he's a veterinarian?
Oh, yeah. He is a veterinarian full-time. His book is about getting peed on in very few words.
I'm here to say I think he's doing landlording wrong, if that's the case.
So I could just hear everybody in our audience going, what does getting peed on have to do with it? Is possible, I've heard, Crystal, that you could buy real estate without getting peed on. Is that true, Alan?
In my experience, 23 years, I've been pee-free. Thankfully, I keep trying to keep the streak alive.
That is good. Crystal, what does getting peed on have to do with real estate?
Well, he's actually a full-time veterinarian. This is actually, like me, he is a side real estate investor. He doesn't want to do this full-time. He has no desire to do this full-time, but he's been successful at it. He's actually been so successful that he has actually scaled back his hours that he's been putting in at the office just because he's had this great success. And it's all been on the side. So he knows how to juggle his real estate investing and his passive income investing and his full-time gig.
I can't wait to hear you talk to him. Of course, as always, we have our headline today about builders and decorators ghosting people. Doug told you all this, our emergency data dump. We've got our trivia question. We got so much to do. So why don't we get started?
Hello, chaps. And now our Stacking Deeds headlines. Cheerio and pip pip.
Our headline today comes to us from the Times of London. It's about being ghosted by builders and decorators. I have to tell you before we get to this piece, guys, that builders and decorators, super important to your project. And I'll tell you how I know this firsthand. Right now, my son, Nick, and maybe sometime we'll have him on the show. Nick is up to 13 properties, by the way, as a part-time investor, like Mike is. But he's got 4 he's finishing at the same time. And Nick, being a young investor in his late 20s, he's 27. I think he's learning, and I'm okay with him hearing it from me with the microphone on. He should be hiring more people. My spouse, Cheryl, is helping him with these. And don't get me wrong, she's invested partially in a few of these properties, but she's taken on the role of decorator. And when you hire part-time people, and I'm sure, Alan, with your hundreds of houses, you've seen this before, when you hire part-time people, they make big mistakes. I had already made this mistake in Texarkana because guess what happened yesterday, guys? I go out to get the mail after doing an interview and open up the door, and the mailman's brought the mail right to our front door because there's a bunch of boxes. And I go and I open up the boxes. They're all dressed to Cheryl, and it's bedding, it's mattress covers, Then later on, when Cheryl comes home, she's like, oh man, I screwed up because there's a bed, there are 2 mattresses, and Cheryl accidentally had all the stuff for these houses in Detroit sent to our house in Texarkana.
Ouch.
I'm assuming these are short-term rentals. That's why you're buying
Yes.
bedding.
Well, this is
Aw.
all Airbnb stuff.
I thought this was Girl Scout cookie deliveries. I thought that's where this story was going.
That's what I was hoping it was. My waistline not hoping that it was, but hey, that's an easy mistake to make, right? Is that you're busy, you're doing 5 different things, or you have the stuff come to the wrong place. But anyway, it's important to have builders and decorators. This piece talks about that. It's written by Hannah Al Othman. Hannah writes, when I bought a Victorian terrace house in Manchester in the middle of November, I thought it only really needed a small amount of cosmetic work. Kitchen relatively new, mostly fine. It just needed a respray to change the color. I also want to get a decorator in to paint over the house's, quote, grandma's bungalow color scheme. Why do I see that in my head? Like, so descriptive. Didn't use any colors, but grandma's bungalow with its pistachio. Oh, here's the colors. Pistachio, powder blue, and lilac walls. Oh, God. And to strip the horrible floral wallpaper from the spare room. Anyway, it goes on to say, guys, there's a bunch of small jobs she wanted done. So she decides that she's going to hire a builder and she's also going to hire some decorators. And they don't show. They just ghost her. They say they're going to show up and then they don't. I've had this happen just as a homeowner, guys. Alan, I'll start with you first. I can imagine if I own a bunch of houses, that'd be a nightmare. I can't be calling these people over and over and over again. What's going on here?
Well, that's the problem. You don't own a bunch of houses, because if you own a bunch of houses, those laborers, the contractors, the designers, you're going to get first priority. They're always going to take care of your properties first because you can give them 2, 10, 12 times the business as a single homeowner. And so it's really just good business sense on the contractors in most case.
But
So-
what about for us, though? The one-timers, the infrequent flyers, I'd like to call us, the people who are doing this part-time. When we have some work we need to be done, we don't have Ghostbusters. So who do you call?
Well, let's start here. Does this have something to do with the economy, you think? Like the economy is so good that they don't need your business if you only have one house? Like, yeah, you seem like, Crystal, you might be a little bit of a pain in the ass to work with. So I'm not going to take this small deal. I'm going to take a big deal where I'm going to make a bunch more money, like Alan's saying.
Well, I'll say this. If you've got a small job and it's one property, the people who are available to do that job are either not skilled or they don't have the experience yet. Because the ones that are good, they get hired for bigger jobs really quick, or a home renovator, someone who's doing multiple flips and where this is their business. They're going to latch on to that skilled person and not let them go and keep them busy 40, 50 hours a week. So they say no to every other job. Every contractor
You're
I've ever
saying there's
met,
a labor shortage in this area.
yeah. Oh, yeah. There's a labor shortage of skilled quality and price, right? It's that combination. No one wants to do this work. It's needed badly. The good people get scooped up, and every contractor works job to job. So they say yes to everything. I've never known a contractor that says no. They'll say, I'll do it, but they'll give you a crazy price, maybe, but they'll say yes to everything. And then eventually you'll just say, okay, that's the price. I'll do it. And then you're on the hook saying, when are you coming? When are you coming? When are you coming? Because every morning that contractor wakes up and says, do I do the $100 job today or do I do a $1,000 job today? They're always going to pick that $1,000 job. So the only time they're actually going to show up is if they don't have anything that would pay them more for that hour or that day on their schedule.
Well, let's talk about then how we, if we only own a single property, maybe 2 properties, how we become that person they want to work with. Crystal, back in episode 1, you talked about sending flowers. I think we even talked about baking some stuff, sucking up to the homeowner so that they accept your bid that might be a little lower. How do you make yourself be the person they want to work with?
You have to know what you want and what's realistic. If you don't know what you want, you're wavering, you haven't done any education, you haven't done any research, you don't know what you want, they're going to know that immediately. And they're going to say, okay, this person doesn't know what they're talking about. They don't know what they want. They don't know what they can afford. They're going to be surprises 9 times out of 10, because I believe in this article, she said she had a little bit of rotting in the corner, but when they pulled up the floorboards, they noticed that the joists had rotted, and there were newspapers dated from 2004 that they had been just stuffing in there to keep the floor level. So
That's not what you
now-
do. That's not what a certified contractor would do.
Never. And so that made the job 10 times harder. So those people, they didn't come back because they were like, oh, I thought I was coming in to sweep a floor, not totally reconstruct a floor. I think that was another issue with arming yourself with education.
Yeah, I like this idea of looking at the full scope of the project and getting it down and making it quick for the contractor. Like if you know that you're a small job, I think maybe, Alan, do you think that if you can have it all laid out for them and make it super easy to get in and out, you might be able to convince somebody that knows what they're doing because you're going to be the easy person to work with?
I'd say that would help if you contacted that contractor directly. However, if you really want to piggyback off someone else who sends them a lot of business, call the biggest realtor in town and say, who is the contractor that you recommend? Because I promise you, I did this in Atlanta. I kept my contractor so busy across 50 clients a year that anyone who called that mentioned my name got work done that day, because that contractor wanted to please me, not necessarily my client. So you got to piggyback off someone else who gives that contractor a lot of business, and you're going to be good to go. That realtor is not just going to give you that contact willy-nilly, because worst thing is someone taking my contractor, right? Like, they're for my own clients. So build that relationship. Maybe you don't have a relationship with a realtor, but a property manager that's in town. Or if you need an electrician, talk to a plumber and say, hey, do you know a good electrician? Because the tradesmen will refer each other, because they'll come up to a job and say, hey, I'm going to do all this, but I don't have the skills for that, but I got a guy. All the other tradesmen have the guys that's complementary skill set. So that's maybe another way you can do a end around to kind of get on a contractor's schedule on a small budget.
This goes back to what you were talking about in episode 1, Crystal, which is your network. It's your network, your network, the people you surround yourself with.
If you want to make the bigger guy in town, the Allen in town happy, he's going to give you a good person, his contractor, and then his contractor doesn't want to mess up his relationship with the bigger person.
Let me tell you this, it isn't just in real estate either. I was at Applebee's last week. There was like a 45-minute wait. I said, I know Alan Corey, and I got like a table, Crystal, like right now. It's amazing.
I'm sorry you're at Applebee's.
Unlimited appetizers, man. Yeah, go get it. Mention my name, AC at Applebee's. That's
Applebee's. If you want to sponsor the show, it's Crystal that doesn't like you. It's Crystal, not Alan.
We like
and I.
sponsors. We do like sponsors.
Applebee's, we'll take your money. Yes. Actually, you know what's funny? Our Applebee's in town, I am kidding, because I did like Applebee's when I lived in Detroit, but the one here is just gross.
I heard Ruth likes the Golden Corral, so I usually give them one.
Oh, yes.
Of course she does. I feel like this is a golden corral of podcasting here with riding Ruth's back seat. But I think there might be another piece here besides mentioning Alan's name 40 times when you call up, or the realtor, whoever it is, when you call up these people, like, you know, tell them, hey, you were referred by so-and-so. I always think a good referral is a great way to do business anyway. Dr. Tom Stanley wrote The Millionaire Next Door and said that millionaires refer other millionaires. That's what they do. I mean, that is a millionaire trait, is to work from referrals. But I think there's another one here too, Crystal. I also think that for people like you or my son, Nick, you can't be a penny pincher. I mean, you truly have to realize you might have to open up the purse strings a little bit more to get their attention.
That is definitely true. That goes back to budget. I know there are a lot of things that I paid extra for because I'm not a frequent flyer. Frequent flyers get all the perks because they're in rotation. They're a familiar face. When you're not as a frequent flyer, you pay a little bit more. A lot of times that's what you're paying for, but you're paying for the better service, the better quality. It's always worth it.
Part-time workers give you full-time problems. You get what you pay for. So many times the Band-Aid, you got to change the Band-Aid 6 times. If you would have just done it right the first time, it would have been cheaper and fixed faster.
Yeah, you get Joe hauling your crap halfway across the country is what you get. Nobody wants that. Who wants that?
They always say cheap is more expensive. So if you're trying to go the cheap route, it's going to cost you more in the long term.
Hey, but kudos to Nick for not buying his mattresses, getting them for free off Craigslist, and actually buying new bedding. You don't want to go too budget on an Airbnb. Yeah.
It is time for, at the end of our headline segment, we do a quick data dump, and today's data comes to us from the New York Times. Ellen, you're the one that originally found this, and now it's printing out underneath my feet.
He's pooping data.
Oh boy, pee and poop.
I just like Ruth's keeping dot matrices in business here. So yes, this is a piece in the New York Times by Michael Kolomatsky. He made the list for singles and looked at studio apartments across the United States, and he found the 10 most expensive cities for singles to rent in. You guys have any guess on maybe some cities in the top 3 or 4 here? Most expensive?
Oh, probably Texarkana. I'm sure Texarkana is in the top.
I don't think so.
Ooh, they didn't make the top 10. They didn't make the top 10.
Definitely.
Just outside of the top 10 most expensive, I'm sure.
You have dust bunnies down there. I would say New York and any place in California.
We've got New York, number 1. That's a huge one. Los Angeles.
Number 1.
It's got to be a bunch of California cities.
Yeah.
There's one. Oh, sorry, let me rephrase this. It's based on the average single income of that city. So it's a ratio of what a studio would rent for. compared to the average single income of that city.
Gotcha. So it's percentage of income that goes to rent.
That's right.
I know DC, there's a rent burden where a lot of people pay 30% of their income.
Does DC make the list?
Is DC on there?
So DC doesn't make the list. I think the reason you don't see more California cities on this outside Los Angeles is California has a lot of rent control laws. New York's number 1, Miami number 2. Then this is where things sort of get surprising to me. 3, New Orleans. 4, Raleigh, North Carolina. And then Boston, Houston, San Antonio, Los Angeles, Virginia
Look at
Beach.
the Texas cities. Texas cities.
Detroit is actually number 10, Joe.
That's
Detroit.
surprising as well. That
is.
Detroit on this. Now I see 27% of somebody's take-home pay they're spending on rent.
The average income in Detroit's $40,000. You're spending $900 on a rental income. Yeah, that's almost a third of your take-home pay. So that's big bucks. So
what does that say? If you look at this list, hold on, Alan. If you look at this list, does this tell me then that if I'm a landlord in these cities, my opportunity then to raise rents truly isn't that high, right? So if I'm a landlord in Miami and somebody's already spending on average 37% of the amount they make in rent, I don't have a lot of breathing room there. Yeah.
Unless you buy a property that has a studio that rents for $1,200, and this data is telling you that you could rent it for $2,070. It's a data point that you're going to reference to determine, are the rents sustainable? Can I raise the rents, or are they currently at market rate?
So if I'm looking for investment properties and I'm trying to figure my strategy, and if my comfort zone just happens to be Miami, according to this data, while I'm doing my research, am I saying, okay, maybe I want an Airbnb, maybe I want a short-term rent? What's my strategy here?
I think you only have part of the formula. It really determines what the purchase price is, what your mortgage payment's going to be. That's going to be determined by your interest rate and your down payment. And then you look at the rental income. So this is just one piece of data that will build the puzzle to determine whether it'll make for a good investment or not. If you're on the budget minded, right? So obviously these big cities that get these big rents, the properties are going to be high priced. So if you want to do the opposite, where the median studio rent is very, very affordable compared to the average single income, these are the cities you're going to want to go to. Fresno, California is considered the most affordable. 90% for the percent of income of rent is spent on a studio apartment. And then you got El Paso.
Wait a minute then.
Yeah.
But then hold on. I'm going to be looking at this the wrong way. In Fresno, if the median studio rent is $900, and that's what people are used to, and I go to raise the rent on those people, I might see some pushback, but it isn't necessarily income related. It's market related.
That's correct. Every real estate analysis is very local. So why is it 900? Is it rent control laws? Is it that there's not a whole lot of studios, or there's too many studios, I should say, that's keeping the price down? There's just way too much inventory and competition. There could be a lot of reasons why it's $900. It could be a permanent reason. It could be temporary. This article by itself in a silo doesn't determine whether I want to invest in these cities or not. It's just another piece to help me make a bigger picture decision. Just to wrap up this data point, guys, these are the most affordable cities. A lot of them may be college towns, and that could be why a studio so rent. Fresno, California, El Paso, Texas, Milwaukee, Kansas City, Columbus, Ohio, Colorado Springs. The list goes on and on, but there you go. A mix of most affordable, least affordable for studios and for those singles out there. We'll link to our pieces on contractors and decorators and this data dump piece in our show notes. You can get them delivered to your email address every show by going to stackingdeeds.net/show notes. It's free and you can unsubscribe at any time. Crystal, tell everyone about our guest today.
Coming up next, our guest is juggling a full-time career and a real estate empire. His name is Michael Bugg. He's a full-time veterinarian. You're going to learn a ton from him because he's going to bring us a lot of tips on how he got into the real estate game on a part-time basis, how he's made so much money that actually he's starting to cut back on his hours. I can't wait to hear from Mike. But before Mike, Doug, I think you've got some trivia for us from the back in that very spacious trunk. I feel like he has like a jacuzzi or something back there. Take it away, Doug.
Hey there, Deeders. I'm Ruth the Realtor's personal roadside assistant, Neighbor Doug. Now get out your Q-tips and clear out your earwax because you'll really want to listen close to today's trivia question. On this day in history back in 1964, Madame Tussauds Wax Museum in London announced that the Beatles would become the first pop stars to be cast in wax, which naturally makes today's question a real ball of wax. The tourist-friendly wax museum Madame Tussauds opened its first United States location in Las Vegas 24 years ago. It has since opened up 5 more cities in the United States. Can you name 3? Before you answer, hey, did I tell you I once tried my hand at wax sculpting? I found these free urinal cakes in the bathroom, and I gotta say, either sculpting is not my medium, or there's a reason wax cakes are always free for the taking. Anyway, I'll be back right after I swap my black fanny pack for something a little less touristy.
Today's show is brought to you by Spring, because every real estate investor knows that housing prices go up in the spring. Spring, available wherever you buy your calendars.
Hey there, Dieters. I'm Ruth's part-time mechanic and former sculptor, Namer Doug. And now I'm hoping my floral print fanny pack makes me look a little less touristy and a little bit more like a local. Anyway, here was a reminder on today's trivia question. Madame Tussauds opened its first wax museum in the United States in the city of Las Vegas way back in 1999. It has since opened up 5 more locations in the United States. Can you name 3 of those cities? Look, I already gave you Las Vegas, so that one doesn't count. A year after that came New York City, and then Madame Tussauds continued waxing on in the cities of San Francisco, Orlando, and Nashville. Will there be more? Look, that's really none of your beeswax. So let's get back to the ride with Ruth, as Michael Bugg is going to wax poetic about balancing full-time jobs with real estate investing.
On today's show, we have Michael Bugg. You're traipsing along in happy veterinarian land, and then something totally changes your perspective. But before we talk about the P, let's hear a little bit about you.
We're hanging out at the back of Ruth's car.
Yes, we
I
are.
never
She's a
get-
great driver. Go ahead. You may tip the driver. She loves tips.
Good. I am a veterinarian. I graduated in 2008. And so the story we're referring to was, you graduate, you're all excited, you're off in your career. And then as the years kind of start piling on, my wife eventually kind of coined the moniker Miserable Mike for me. I laugh about it now. It wasn't super funny at the time, but it's where a bad day turns into a bad week, and all of a sudden you're in a bad mood, and then all of a sudden that's just your personality. You're just miserable. And then on one fateful day at the veterinary clinic, Diablo and the Tomcat comes in, like Tomcats tend to do, playing very nice, very coy, and then all of a sudden springs to life, is trying to scratch and bite everyone. One of our technicians, he gets a hold of her, but she's got him. She's bleeding, and he kind of swings around, and he's peeing everywhere. Gets me in my mouth, cat pee everywhere. That was the moment where I was like, I'm done. I will be pivoting out of this career and going over to real estate full time.
So let's talk about a pivot, because a lot of us, I feel like, have moments where we do want to pivot. Why real estate?
Good question. And to be honest, real estate had been on my mind for quite a while. When I go all the way back to graduating from vet school, there was really kind of a couple key events that started this for me. The first one was driving to work on the very first day. Like literally, this is my first day as a veterinarian ever. And I remember stopping at a red light, and I don't know if I want to call it a panic attack or what it was, but something kind of came over me where I was just sitting there being like, what the hell have I done? Right? Like it was just, I had climbed the mountain, right? Got through vet school, graduated. I got DVM next to my name. And I'm sitting here being like, I have to do this now for 30 to 40 years, right? I felt very trapped. That's back in 2008. Then I get to the vet clinic. And so 2008, 2009, I'm sure your listeners all remember what was happening in the world then. That was a time of a lot of financial uncertainty, right? We get into the great financial crisis. I'm back working at the veterinary clinic that I basically grew up alongside. So these were the vets that came out to our farm. This is where I volunteered. I knew them all. The veterinarian that had owned the practice had done everything perfectly, like the financial playbook, get a good job, own a business, sail off into the sunset. He's back working. And I remember seeing him there, and it was like finding out there's no Santa Claus, because I was like, what the hell is going on? Right? And he wasn't there because he wanted to be. He was there because he had to be. because everyone's stock portfolio was just cut in half. That
That's
is what got me
terrible.
starting to think like, wow, I have to do something different. Fast forward, the
Right.
usual suspects, the rich dad, poor dad, diving into all the books and education. 2012 finally started buying property. So by the time Diablo showed up, I had been
Oh.
investing for quite a while. So it allowed me the opportunity to pivot.
Let's talk about in your book. I love this line. Your real estate has contributed more to your net worth than the totality of all of your veterinary paychecks. You said no stocks because that guy lost his money in the stock market. Why not other passive incomes? Why real estate?
It started completely by accident, and I have to thank my
Hmm.
parents for this. When I go to vet school, you have to travel, go to a new city. That was in 2002, and I knew veterinary school was going to be at least 6 years, maybe more, depending how long it took me to get in. And so my parents had the foresight. They were like, you know what? We're going to buy a place in that city, and we're going to buy a place that has lots of bedrooms. You're
Mhm.
going to live there, and it'll be your responsibility to have roommates in all the other bedrooms. You don't have to pay rent, but they will, and that'll cover the cost of the house. So
Oh,
I
that's
got like,
smart.
so I was house hacking, and I didn't even know the definition of house hacking existed at the time. I was just a
Mhm.
college kid that had roommates. I fell into it, and I got really lucky there. So I got to live for free my entire university,
Wow.
6 years. At the end of it, so my parents bought that place, and I think they paid about 124,000, and they ended up
Mhm.
selling it for 300 and some thousand. Even
Amazing.
they didn't expect that. And so I remember at the end of it, remember my dad saying like, wow, this was some of the like best and easiest money I've ever made. He even gave me a portion of that, me and my other siblings,
Cool.
because he's like, we didn't expect this. We just wanted you to have a place to live. And that's when I was like, wow, there's something here. That wasn't really that hard to do.
That's awesome. So fast forward, what was the first place that you were actually in on where you were like, all right, it's my turn?
I was going to do a live-in renovation in 2010. I lived there
Mhm.
while I renovated the house, and I was like, I'm doing everything or trying to do everything. And it was just all around a bad idea. I'm not that handy. Despite the fact that I can do really delicate surgery, I don't swing a hammer very well. So
Yeah.
I don't even really count that one because I was like, okay, I'm
Right.
not doing that again. But in 2012, me and
Mhm.
my wife, that's when we were like, okay, fix and flips, that's not really for us. Let's do some buy and holds with basement suites. So we bought our first official rental property May of 2012. At the time, the government in our area had a program where you got a $30,000 grant if you put a basement suite in. So we were like, this is amazing. We did the first one. We're like, we got a check for 30 grand. We have this nice new property, 3 bedrooms up, 2 bedrooms down. We were like, let's do it again and again. So I think we did 3 or 4 in that first year. Right out of the get-go, we had a really different philosophy that lots of people will have on how they're going to use real estate. So a lot of people will think of real estate where it's like, okay, I want to leave my job, and they'll run the numbers. If a property cash flow is 500 a month and I make 50 grand a year, I have to have about 8 properties so I can leave my job, right? Or if it's 100 grand, I need 60. What I found though is, you're probably leaving out some expenses. So we'll round that up to 20. And
Got
I'm
it.
looking at that and I'm like, that seems kind of daunting to me, like 20 houses to leave my job. Both me and my wife were working, so we didn't need the cash flow. So we looked at it different. If you've ever been to a grocery store and you think about when you're kind of checking out and cashing out,
Never.
right?
Just
And you
kidding.
put your
Yeah.
groceries down at one end of the conveyor belt and they're working their way up. We looked at it like this, like 2012, let's just set a house on the conveyor belt and we're not even going to touch it for 10 years. And in 10 years, when we're up at the cash register, by the time that house gets there, it is going to have all of this equity in it, right? It's going to have all this
Mhm.
cash flow, all this mortgage paid out, hopefully appreciation. For rough numbers, it was going to be way more than 100 grand, but let's just call it 100 grand. There's your paycheck. So as long as you're dropping one house in a year, every year, by the time you hit the 10-year mark, you just get to grab one off the
Bigger.
conveyor belt and be like, there you go. There's my salary for the year. So that's how we looked at it. And we've started executing that plan in 2022. We actually sold more
Got
than
it.
one, right? But we're starting to drip those houses off now. So instead of the monthly cash flow being what we're really worried about, it's
Mhm.
these big chunks, these big paydays.
Oh, that's awesome. The equity paydays. Let's go back to talk about you and your wife. You both actually had jobs that you love. And thanks to real estate, you've reduced your hours and eventually went full time on real estate. You were able to serve the veterinarian community in a way more impactful way. Can you talk about that for a little bit?
Yeah, it's all setting up that pivot. So as you
Mhm.
mentioned, I went down to part-time. For me, it became a game of how do I keep my income at roughly the same, but keep reducing the amount of hours I actually have to show up at a veterinary clinic.
Got
Step
it.
one was go part-time. And then step two, I think in 2018, I officially hung up my stethoscope and don't practice clinically anymore.
Mhm.
And what I found throughout that was, yes, I do love helping pets. Like I do
Mhm.
love doing medicine and surgery. But what I really love even more is helping the veterinarians and helping them
Yeah.
in this same way. I know what it felt like to feel totally trapped and to be like, I have to do this for 40 years. Like this just feels exhausting. So that's where I spent my time now, was looking at, okay, how can other veterinarians start to unlock that freedom in their life? What's funny is when I talk to veterinarians, when I talk to human physicians, dentists, it doesn't matter. And this doesn't have to
Mhm.
be a healthcare profession.
Right.
Lots of people love what they do. They're just stuck doing way too much of it. They just don't want to do it for 60 hours a week. If they could do it for
Same.
20,
Oh, yeah.
fantastic, right? So
Yes.
it's funny when I ask veterinarians, we'll come up with like a 5 or a 10-year plan of like, what can real estate do for you? And I'll say, okay, let's just pretend 10 years passes and we execute this plan perfectly. What would you do then? The funny part is they still say they would still do some veterinary work.
Mhm.
They still want to help
Yeah.
pets. They just want to have a life also.
That is true. That's why you're a great match for this show, because I myself, I'm an engineer, I'm a part-timer. I love my job, but there are times when I'm like, all right, I'm just out of here because sometimes it is too much. I love how you leaned into your pivot. Let's talk about your community, your team. Obviously, you didn't learn like, okay, I'm a veterinarian, medically trained. There is no real estate training, quote unquote. A lot of it is on the job training or on the go or on the deal training. How did you even learn when it was you and your wife's turn?
Yeah.
How did you learn?
A few different avenues. When I decide to go in a direction, typically I go all in. So for me, what that looked like was just getting around other people, starting with the local meetups. Pretty much every community nowadays has some type of real estate meetup. So start attending them. Started going to the larger conferences, the more regional or national conferences. I went so far as to hire a coach. I had a dedicated one-on-one real estate coach. And I had that coach at the time when I was pivoting out of my career. And then as I was trying to scale up, it's just getting around other investors that are actually doing what you want to do. So the first apartment building that we purchased was also kind of by accident. So the two other guys were going to look at it. And I just said, hey, can I tag along? I just want to learn how to start speaking this language, see what the layouts are like. There's no expectation here. I'm just a fly on the wall. We go, we look at the building, we go for coffee, and it start kicking the deal around. And it turns out they're like, you know what? We need a little bit more capital. Like, do you want in on this? And I was like, absolutely, let's do it. And so it was just by
Yeah.
like, there's a saying, if you hang around the barbershop long enough, you'll eventually get a haircut. And it's like,
Yeah.
so I just showed up. You just be the person that shows up, and you'll eventually start speaking that language and taking action. I feel like this stuff is really the important part, like why people get involved in it, you know, what direction they're going, what it can do for their life. That's what fires me up.
There's another thing you talk about when you diversify, that's when things just go out of hand.
There is a time for diversification. If you're in your real estate investing career and you're trying to get the plane off the ground, think about what a plane does. It's everything is focused on going forward as fast as we can, as hard as we can. So they're not serving drinks.
Mm-hmm.
Seats are up, tray tables are up. No one's going to the bathroom. Let's get this plane off the ground. And it's only once you're up and flying that you can get up and start walking around and diversify a bit, right? A lot of people make that mistake is they have too many irons in the fire, right? And so none of them actually move forward. So eventually you need to pick your thing, become the best at it, become an expert at it. And then when that's sailing along, then you can add some extra protection, other streams of income, start to diversify out.
Wonderful advice. Get your plane off the ground. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about this Munich taxi ride.
This is inspired by the setting of the podcast. I mean, this story has virtually nothing to do with real estate, but you guys said,
Perfect.
what's a story you never get to tell? So, I mean, most people are investing in real estate to have the freedom to do the things they want. My wife and I booked a trip over to Europe. We're going to spend about half the time in Germany, down at Munich at Oktoberfest. And then we're going to spend the other half on a cruise that took off out of Venice. We get to Munich, phenomenal, and we're on our last day. And this is really the only day that we had to have a schedule because we had to be up at like 3 a.m. to get to the train station, to get to Venice.
Ouch.
And it was the only option. This is it. We're not going to go to the fairgrounds, to the Oktoberfest. We're not drinking today.
Be
We're
good.
going to just go see the site. So we head off to the sort of downtown, other parts of Munich. But it's Oktoberfest. So the city is just crazy and
a
people are
parking
partying
lot.
everywhere. We go into this one sort of restaurant / pub just to get some food, and it's chaos. And in true like German style, there's this huge like solid wood sign of some sort, and some drunk people like knock it over
Oh,
onto Rosalie, my wife, and like hits her on the head, and like she's under it and like kind of getting
no.
like rushed a bit by it. But I mean, she's not injured. It's just like
Right.
she's hurt.
Get me up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the bit of chaos, and the sort of owner comes running over and gets her pulled out, pulls us aside, and he says, "This is how we handle these things here in Munich." And he starts just pouring schnapps, like just lining them up. And we're all looking at each other. And it's like, we weren't really planning on having any drinks today. Like, we're just sort of seeing the sights, but okay.
We're all in.
So we have start drinking schnapps, and we're like, wow, we go out the door. There's like the Paulinger Beer House, the Hofbrauhaus, like all the famous breweries. We have some beers. The next thing we know, we wake up, we're still in our like Lederhosen and Dirndl. The alarm is going off, and we're like, oh shit, we're supposed to be at the train station. There's no way that we are making this train. We accept our defeat, and we're like, start brainstorming. We're like, okay, well, let's go to the airport and just pick a place. Like, we don't have to be back to Canada for like 7 days. We'll go wherever. So we're taking a taxi. We're going to the airport. And I just said to the guy, I was like, hey, how far is Venice? But he looks at me and I'm like, Venice, Italy? And I'm like, yep.
Yeah.
And so I was like, he's like, oh, it's a long ways away. And I was like, will you take us there?
Wow.
And I'll never forget. He like looks at the review mirror, he lowers his glasses, and he's like, Italia? And I'm like, yes. How much to take us there? And then I'm like, I'm going to lean on my real estate investing skills here. No matter what number he says, I'm just going to pause, and then I'm going to make a counteroffer of some sort, and we'll negotiate this. So I think he said like 850, this is euros, 850
Right.
euros. And Rosalie, my wife, like jumps out of the back seat. She's like, "Will, take it."
Oh, no.
He looks, and he still was trying to figure out, like, are these guys serious or not? So he makes a phone call, shuts
Yeah.
the meter off. And the next thing we know, we're in the back of this taxi on the Autobahn going to Venice, Italy. We finally get to Venice. He pulls up on the dock right next to the cruise ship. And other like taxis come up because they can see the German plates, and like,
Right.
what
Kidding?
what are these guys doing here? And this is kind of funny, and I didn't correct him on it. And he looked at us, and I'm Canadian, obviously, and he's like, he points to the guy, he's like, Americans. That's the longest taxi ride I've ever taken in my life.
Oh my gosh. Let's go back to your negotiation skills. So you pause after you get an offer.
I mean, it's very situational, I would say.
Got
it. Yeah, like,
okay.
In terms of the negotiating skills, some quick tips would be, don't say the first number, right?
Okay.
Like, I didn't make the offer. I asked him, let him say the first price. And then I always feel like time is probably the most powerful negotiation tool, especially if you can get comfortable being uncomfortable, right? Even on this podcast, I'm not going to do it, but if I was to just stop talking and look at you, you would feel obligated to start talking and fill the
Yes.
silence, right?
I wouldn't be able to turn it off.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's just sort of how most people are. But if you could just intentionally be like, I'm good sitting here, I'm just going to wait till they say something. That's where people will say a number, feel uncomfortable, say another number, right? Before you even have to chime
The
in.
pause. The pause is important.
Yeah.
Well, this has definitely been a pleasure. Thank you, Mike, for joining us today. Where can we find you?
If you're looking for me personally, michaelbugg.com would be my website. On Instagram, I'm michaelbugg.dbm. If you are a member of the veterinary community, you want to check that out, theveterinaryproject.com or veterinary project on Instagram.
Perfect. Well, this has been a pleasure.
All right. See you, Mike. That was awesome, Crystal. I know exactly what he's feeling. I started in real estate investing part-time. I wanted to keep my job as long as possible because it meant I could get approved for more and more mortgages. And I would just save up a little bit each month and put it into a real estate bucket. And January 1st of every single year, I just said, how much money do I have in my real estate fund? And I would go spend it. And that was my annual pilgrimage to real estate investing. And it made my day job so much better. I'm not here to impress my boss. I'm not here to be a C-suite person. I'm here because January 1st, I'm going to buy a property. And the better I do and the more I work, I'll be able to buy a property. So that's how I eased into it. I bought 5 properties over 5 years working a full-time job and finally was able to just go all in.
So keeping the 9 to 5, you bought 5 in the beginning. I'm trying to decide if I want to go that route too. Buying more real estate does give you that option when some days you're at work and you're like, F this, my real estate's got my back. I definitely see what you mean by that one.
That's FU money. You got to work up enough FU money. Everyone has their different goals. Hey, is that the phone ringing? I think it is. It's now time for the last segment of today's show, Ring Ruth's Rotary.
Hi, Crystal and Alan. This is Patrick. I just wanted to call and ask if the advice in this TikTok is good or bad.
Let's give it a listen, Patrick.
The safest, most conservative way to build wealth in real estate is for you to buy, fix up over time, 2 years. Okay, so you lived in it as your primary residence for 2 years. You improved it while you lived there, then it appreciated in value, hopefully. You did some improvements, and you sold it, and you cashed out the equity, and you got maximum amount of profit that you didn't have to pay capital gains on. You can do that every 2 years. If you're single, you can have a gain of up to $250,000 without tax implications. And if you're married, you can have a gain up to $500,000. That is a nice, non-taxable gain on a secured investment that you lived in. And if you repeat and rinse every 2 years, cha-ching.
Hey, thanks for that call. I'm digging this advice. I'm not going to say digging it like a booger. So she's saying every 2 years, whatever you decide to buy, I'm still in house hack mode. So I'd be buying a duplex, fix it up, make it look nice, and then after 2 years, sell it so that you don't have to pay any capital gains taxes and then buy something else. Why wouldn't you just keep it since you already know the bones of the house? What would you do, Alan?
I call this floater homing. Typically, this is great if you have handyman skills because you're adding value through sweat equity, fixing up the value of your property, and then you're selling it. And most people don't want to sell after every 2 years because they haven't added a lot of value after capital gains taxes and things like that. But this will wipe away your taxable gains tax because it's tough to make more than $250,000 if you're single on renovating a house in 2 years, or $500,000 if you're married. I know several people who will just move their entire families every 2 years, buy a fixer-upper, live in flip, and then you sell in it, and it's tax-free. I mean, if you make $100,000 tax-free, that's like making $200,000 at a day job and paying taxes. So it's a great, lucrative way to build wealth. It just takes flexibility and a spouse that agrees with your plan as well. So, Patrick, that's how I would approach this. It's a great idea. You just got to get your spouse on board.
I mean, but even if you don't have a spouse, you can still do something like this too.
That's true. Yeah, you could do it by yourself for sure. It's a very common way to house hop or float between homes and floater homing. Basically anything where you can pay no taxes, lean into it if you can.
All in. I like the parallel you did of if you made $100,000 in income, you're definitely paying taxes on that. But then if you're making $100,000 in real estate and equity, when you sell it, that's capital gains, tax-free.
This is only if it's your primary residence for 2 of the last 5 years. So you have a 5-year window. As long as it's your primary residence for 2 of those, you can rent it out for 3 and then sell it, and it still applies.
Let's say I'm living in house A for 2 years. I fix it up and then I rent it out. I can rent it out for 3 years and still sell it at year 5, no capital gains tax.
That's correct. That's the beauty of this.
That's very good to know. And I don't have to get a spouse.
That could be the biggest benefit of all, depending on your situation.
Thanks a lot for that question, Patrick. If you have a question that you want Alan and I to answer, Ruth actually handed me the phone number. It's stackingdeeds.net/voicemail. Leave us a message and we'll answer your question just like we did Patrick's today. He actually sounded just like the other guy.
Hey, Crystal, let's be completely transparent. Ruth gave you a phone number. It only had 4 digits, but we figured out how to put it on the website so that you can leave a voicemail on the website.
That too. Leave Ruth alone. Wow, what a great episode. We learned a lot today. Alan, what would you say your favorite part was?
I love just the reminder that you don't have to be passionate and all in on real estate to change your life financially. You could do it on the side. And the tips that Mike shared with us today applies to everyone. You can ease into this and make it passive and not take away from your day job or even want to leave your day job if you're enjoying it.
My favorite was that TikTok advice. I'm not going to say because you don't need to get a spouse in order to do that. I like the idea of living somewhere, fixing it up, and then put that rinse and repeat. It's a wrap. So, Doug, take it away. What should we have learned today?
So, what should we have learned today? First, take some advice from our headline. Hiring contractors? While being cheap may help you over the short run, nobody wants to work with the person who pays the least and treats their contractors poorly. To build your team, think about how you're going to be the best person to work with without overpaying the help. Second, take some advice from Michael Bugg. Carve out time for your real estate empire, and you can have your full-time job and a portfolio of properties too. But the big lesson? Wait, so you don't have to get peed on to own real estate? That's the lesson? I seriously need to pay attention better. Unrelated, but hey, Ruth, can you drop me off at the laundromat coming up? Thanks to Mike Bugg for joining us. You'll find his book, You're Gonna Get Peed On Amazon or wherever you buy books. Want the whole ball of wax on our hosts? Alan, the Mr. Miyagi of the Twitterverse, can be found on social media at Real Estate Maxi. And if you want your wax heart to just melt, say hello to Crystal on Twitter at Condo Crystal. Details about all of the awesome work our hosts do, you'll find at stackingdeeds.net. This show was created by Joe Salsihai, Crystal Hammond, and Alan Corey, and was initially the brainchild of Alan Corey. Our brilliant editor of today's episode is Jasmine Radler. You can just call Jasmine the puppet master because, somebody has to do the thinking around here. Thanks to Ruth for driving us around, but come on, Ruth, seriously, a little deodorant wouldn't kill you. I'm Ruth's Fetch It Boy, neighbor Doug. We'll see you next Tuesday here at Stacking Deeds.